Have you ever noticed how a single emotion can hit you like a tsunami warning siren, sending your entire system into emergency mode? Picture this. You're scrolling through your phone, perfectly calm, and suddenly you see that text message, that social media post, or remember that thing you said 3 years ago, and boom, it's like every emotional alarm in your body starts blaring at once. Your heart races, your thoughts spiral, and suddenly you feel like you're standing on a beach watching a massive wave approach, knowing you have seconds to react but feeling completely frozen. This isn't just drama or overthinking. This is your emotional system doing exactly what it was designed to do. And today we're going to unravel why emotions feel so overwhelmingly powerful, so urgently demanding, and why understanding this can completely change how you navigate your inner world. The first thing we need to understand is that emotions aren't just feelings floating around in your head. They're your body's ancient survival system disguised as modern-day experiences. Think of your emotional system like a state-of-the-art tsunami detection network that's been running for millions of years. Just like those ocean sensors that detect even the smallest seismic shifts and immediately send warnings across entire coastlines. Your emotional system is constantly scanning your environment, your relationships, your thoughts, and your memories for any sign of potential threat or opportunity. The fascinating part is that this system doesn't distinguish between a real physical danger and something that just feels threatening to your sense of belonging, identity, or security. When you feel that crushing wave of embarrassment after stumbling over your words in front of your crush, your body is responding as if you're facing a genuine threat to your survival. Because in our evolutionary past, social rejection often meant literal death. What makes emotions feel so tsunami-like is their incredible speed and intensity. Modern neuroscience shows us that emotional reactions happen in your brain about 500 milliseconds before your conscious mind even knows what's happening. It's like having a warning system that sounds the alarm before you even see the wave coming. Your amygdala, that almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, processes emotional information 6 times faster than your prefrontal cortex can think logically about it. This means that surge of anger when someone cuts you off in traffic, that wave of anxiety before a presentation, or that flood of sadness when you hear a certain song, these aren't just happening to you. They're your brain's lightning-fast attempt to prepare you for what it perceives as a significant event that requires immediate attention and action. The intensity factor is where things get really interesting, and this connects to our second major characteristic of emotional tsunamis. Unlike regular ocean waves that build gradually, emotional waves seem to appear out of nowhere with devastating force. This happens because emotions operate on what psychologists call the better safe than sorry principle. Your emotional system would rather have you running from a shadow that might be a predator than standing still when there's actual danger. In practical terms, this means your anxiety will treat your upcoming job interview like a life or death situation. Your anger will respond to criticism as if it's a personal attack on your entire identity. And your sadness will feel like the end of the world when really, it's just the end of a relationship, a phase, or a particular dream you had. The system is designed to overreact because overreacting kept our ancestors alive. But in our modern world, this can make everyday emotional experiences feel absolutely overwhelming. Here's where it gets even more complex. Emotions come in clusters, not individually. When one emotion gets triggered, it often brings its entire family along for the ride. Think about the last time you felt really angry about something. Chances are, underneath that anger was hurt, underneath the hurt was fear, and underneath the fear was perhaps a deep sense of not being valued or understood. This is what I call the emotional echo effect. Just like a tsunami isn't just one wave but a series of waves that keep coming. Our emotional experiences rarely show up solo. When your partner forgets your anniversary, it's not just disappointment you feel. It's disappointment riding on top of hurt, which is sitting on top of fear about not being important to them, which connects to old memories of being forgotten or overlooked, which links to your deepest insecurities about being worthy of love and attention. The third characteristic that makes emotions feel so tsunami-like is their ability to completely reshape your reality in the moment they hit. When you're in the grip of a powerful emotion, it's like being underwater. Everything looks different, sounds different, and feels different. Your perception literally changes. What seemed reasonable 5 minutes ago now seems impossible. What felt manageable yesterday now feels overwhelming. And what looked like a minor issue now appears to be a catastrophic problem. This isn't weakness or drama. This is how emotions work. They're designed to focus your attention completely on what they perceive as the most important thing happening right now. When you're anxious, your brain literally cannot see possibilities and opportunities the same way it can when you're calm. When you're angry, your brain cannot process empathy and understanding the same way it can when you're at peace. This tunnel vision effect is evolutionary genius for dealing with immediate threats, but it can make everyday emotional challenges feel like insurmountable crises. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever noticed how problems that seem absolutely overwhelming at night somehow feel more manageable in the morning? Or how conflicts that feel relationship ending in the heat of the moment can seem totally resolvable once you've both calmed down? This isn't because the problems have changed, it's because your emotional state has changed, which means your brain's ability to process information, see options, and think creatively has completely shifted. When you're in an emotional tsunami, you're experiencing a temporary but complete reorganization of how your mind works. Understanding this can be incredibly liberating because it means that how you feel right now, no matter how intense or permanent it seems, is actually a temporary state that will shift as your emotional system recalibrates. The fourth characteristic is perhaps the most challenging one to understand. Emotions have their own timeline that often doesn't match our logical expectations or social demands. We live in a culture that expects emotional processing to happen on schedule. We think we should get over things quickly, bounce back immediately, or feel better because enough time has passed. But emotional tsunamis don't follow our calendars or our preferences. Just like real tsunamis can have waves that keep coming for hours after the initial impact, emotional processing can involve waves of feeling that come and go over days, weeks, or even months. You might think you've processed your grief over an ended friendship, only to have a wave of sadness hit you 6 months later when you hear your former friend's favorite song. You might believe you've moved past the anger from a betrayal, only to feel that familiar surge of rage when someone mentions the person's name. This isn't regression or failure. This is normal emotional processing. Your psyche needs time to integrate significant experiences, and part of that integration involves revisiting the emotions connected to those experiences. Think of it like your brain's filing system. When something emotionally significant happens, your brain can't immediately file it away neatly. Instead, it keeps pulling the file back out, examining it from different angles, connecting it to other experiences, and slowly figuring out where it belongs in your overall life story. During this process, you'll experience waves of emotion that might seem random or inconvenient, but they're actually your mind's way of making sense of and learning from what happened. Now, here's something really important about timing. Emotional tsunamis often hit when we feel safest, not when we're in crisis mode. Have you ever noticed how you can hold it together perfectly during a stressful situation, only to fall apart once you get home? Or how you can be fine all day and then suddenly feel overwhelmed the moment you sit down to relax? This happens because your nervous system only allows you to fully feel and process emotions when it perceives that you're in a safe enough environment to handle them. During crisis or high-stress situations, your system prioritizes survival and functioning over feeling and processing. It's only when your brain gets the signal that you're safe, usually when you're alone, at home, or with someone you trust, that it releases all those emotions you've been unconsciously holding back. Let me pause here for a moment to thank everyone who clicked on this video and is taking time out of their day to explore these ideas with me. I know that understanding emotions can sometimes feel like we're poking at tender spots, but the fact that you're here means you're committed to understanding yourself better, and that takes real courage. The insights we're exploring aren't just interesting psychological facts. They're tools that can genuinely transform how you experience your own emotional life. The fifth characteristic that makes emotions feel like tsunamis is their incredible ability to connect past, present, and future in a single moment. When an emotion hits you intensely, it's rarely just about what's happening right now. Your emotional system is incredibly sophisticated at pattern recognition. It's constantly comparing current situations to everything that's happened to you before and making predictions about what might happen next. So when your boss gives you critical feedback and you feel that crushing wave of shame and anxiety, your emotional system isn't just responding to those specific words in that specific moment. It's also responding to every other time you felt criticized, judged, or not good enough. It's connecting to that time your parents expressed disappointment in your grades, that moment your friends laughed at something you said, that relationship where you never felt appreciated. And it's simultaneously projecting forward to imagine all the ways this current criticism might affect your future, your job security, your reputation, your sense of competence. This time collapse effect is why emotions can feel so disproportionate to the present moment. You're not just dealing with now, you're dealing with echoes from your entire emotional history plus fears about your entire emotional future, all compressed into this single present experience. It's like being hit by a wave that's carrying debris from storms that happened years ago and storms that might happen years from now. Understanding this can help you realize that the intensity you feel isn't necessarily a measure of how bad the current situation actually is. It's a measure of how many layers of emotional experience are getting activated simultaneously. The beautiful thing about recognizing this pattern is that it can help you separate what belongs to now from what belongs to then and later. When you feel that tsunami of emotion, you can start to ask yourself, what part of this feeling is about what's actually happening right now? What part might be about similar situations from my past? What part is worry about future consequences that may or may not happen? This isn't about dismissing your emotions. They're all valid and important. It's about understanding why they feel so overwhelming and learning to work with them more skillfully. The sixth characteristic involves what I call emotional contagion and amplification. Just like tsunamis can be amplified when they hit certain geographical features, our emotions can be dramatically amplified by our social environment and internal narrative. If you're feeling anxious and you spend time around other anxious people, your anxiety doesn't stay the same, it often intensifies. If you're going through a difficult time and you're surrounded by people who catastrophize or drama amplify everything, your emotional experience becomes bigger and more overwhelming than it needs to be. On the flip side, if you're struggling with something but you're around people who can stay calm, present, and grounded, you often find that your emotional intensity naturally begins to settle into a more manageable range. This amplification also happens internally through what psychologists call rumination. When you experience an emotional wave, you have a choice about what you do next. You can either let the wave crash and then naturally recede, or you can mentally recreate the conditions that caused the wave over and over again. Think about the last time someone said something that really hurt your feelings. You could feel the initial impact of their words, feel the hurt, maybe feel some anger, and then gradually move toward acceptance or problem solving. Or you could replay their words in your mind 50 times. Imagine all the ways they were wrong. Fantasize about what you should have said back. Predict all the ways this interaction will affect your relationship. And essentially keep recreating that emotional tsunami every few minutes for days or weeks. The tricky thing is that rumination often feels productive. It feels like you're working on the problem, processing the situation, or preparing for similar encounters in the future. But what you're actually doing is training your brain to stay in that emotional tsunami state longer than necessary. It's like repeatedly triggering the tsunami warning system when the actual danger has passed. Your body and mind don't distinguish between real threats and imagined threats. They respond to both with the same intensity. So when you mentally replay that argument with your friend for the 20th time, your nervous system experiences it as if the argument is happening again right now. Breaking the rumination cycle is one of the most powerful ways to reduce the tsunami-like intensity of emotions. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or pretending problems don't exist. It means learning to distinguish between productive emotional processing and unproductive emotional recycling. Productive processing involves feeling the emotion, understanding what it's telling you, deciding what action to take if any action is needed, and then allowing the emotional energy to naturally dissipate. Unproductive recycling involves getting stuck in loops of thinking about the situation without moving toward resolution, acceptance, or healing. The seventh and final characteristic is perhaps the most hopeful one: emotional tsunamis. No matter how powerful they feel, always eventually recede. This is built into how emotions work. They're designed to be temporary signals, not permanent states. Even the most intense emotional experiences have a natural arc. They build, peak, and then gradually diminish. The problem is that when you're in the middle of an emotional tsunami, it feels like it will last forever. Time seems to slow down or stop entirely when you're in emotional crisis. Minutes feel like hours, hours feel like days, and you can't imagine ever feeling normal again. But here's what's amazing about the human emotional system: it's inherently self-regulating. Just like your body has mechanisms to bring your heart rate back to normal after exercise, your mind has mechanisms to bring your emotional intensity back to baseline after activation. This happens through a combination of neurochemical processes, time, and often expression or movement of some kind. When you cry, you're actually activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which helps calm and reset your emotional state. When you talk about your feelings with someone who listens without trying to fix or change them, you're allowing the emotional energy to discharge naturally. When you go for a walk, do some physical exercise, or engage in creative expression while you're feeling intense emotions, you're helping your system process and metabolize the emotional experience. Understanding this natural rhythm can be incredibly comforting when you're in the middle of difficult emotions. Instead of fighting against the intensity or trying to make it go away immediately, you can remind yourself that this is a temporary state with a beginning, middle, and end. You can ask yourself, what does this emotion need from me right now? Does it need to be felt and acknowledged? Does it need to be expressed somehow? Does it need me to take some kind of action? Or does it just need me to be patient while it runs its course? Sometimes emotions are giving us important information about our needs, boundaries, values, or circumstances that need attention. Sometimes they're releasing old stored experiences that need to be metabolized and integrated. And sometimes they're just the result of being human in a complex world, and they don't require anything from us except patience and self-compassion while they move through us. One of the most liberating realizations you can have is that you don't have to be afraid of your own emotions, even the intense ones. When you understand that emotions are temporary, informational, and designed to help you navigate life rather than destroy you, the whole experience changes. You can start to see emotional tsunamis not as evidence that something is wrong with you, but as evidence that you're a complex, sensitive, deeply feeling human being who's trying to make sense of a complicated world. This doesn't mean emotional intensity is always pleasant or easy to deal with. It can still be challenging, uncomfortable, and sometimes genuinely difficult to navigate. But when you understand the mechanics of how emotions work, you can relate to them differently. Instead of being at the mercy of your emotional weather, you can learn to be a skilled emotional surfer who knows how to work with the waves rather than being constantly knocked over by them. Speaking of working with emotional waves, let me share something that might sound a little unconventional, but just like how surfers actually use the power of the wave to propel themselves forward, you can learn to use the energy of emotional tsunamis as information and fuel for positive change in your life. And hey, if this perspective is helping you see your emotions in a new light, maybe give this video a like, not because you have to, but because, just like emotions, that little heart button is designed to send signals. In this case, signals that help other people who might need to hear this message find their way here too. The key to emotional surfing is developing what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to identify and distinguish between different emotional states with precision. Instead of just knowing you feel bad or upset, you learn to recognize the difference between disappointment, frustration, sadness, anger, anxiety, and hurt. Each of these emotions carries different information and calls for different responses. When you can identify what you're actually feeling, you can respond more appropriately and effectively. For example, if you're feeling anxious, your emotion is telling you that you perceive some kind of threat or uncertainty that needs attention. The appropriate response might be to gather more information, make a plan, practice some anxiety management techniques, or seek support. If you're feeling angry, your emotion is telling you that something feels unfair, that a boundary has been crossed, or that something important to you is being threatened. The appropriate response might be to address the situation directly, set clearer boundaries, or examine whether your expectations are realistic. If you're feeling sad, your emotion is telling you that you've experienced some kind of loss or disappointment that needs to be grieved and processed. The appropriate response might be to allow yourself to feel the sadness, seek comfort and support, or engage in activities that help you process and heal. When you can match your response to what the emotion is actually communicating, you work with your emotional system instead of against it. This doesn't eliminate emotional tsunamis, but it does help them serve their intended purpose more efficiently, which often means they don't need to be as intense or last as long. Another crucial skill for navigating emotional intensity is learning to expand your capacity to hold difficult feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Think of this like building emotional muscle strength. Just like you can gradually build your physical capacity to lift heavier weights or run longer distances, you can gradually build your capacity to experience intense emotions without losing your center or your ability to think clearly and make good decisions. This capacity building happens through practice and through developing what therapists call a wise observer part of yourself. This is the part of you that can notice and acknowledge what you're feeling without being completely consumed by it. It's the part that can say, I notice I'm feeling really anxious right now, and this makes sense given what's happening, and I can handle this feeling while also thinking about what I need to do next. This observer part doesn't eliminate the emotion or judge it as wrong. It just provides a stable platform from which you can experience the emotion without drowning in it. Developing this capacity involves practicing mindfulness, self-compassion, and often, learning to regulate your nervous system through breathing techniques, grounding exercises, or other somatic practices. It's like learning to be a lighthouse keeper during a storm. The storm is real, the waves are powerful, and the situation requires your attention. But you have a stable structure from which to observe and respond rather than being tossed around by every wave. One of the most profound shifts that can happen in your relationship with emotions is moving from asking, how do I make this feeling go away? To asking, what is this feeling here to teach me? Or, how can I be with this feeling in a way that honors both its message and my own well-being? This shift changes everything because it moves you from a position of being at war with your own emotional experience to being curious about it. When you approach emotions with curiosity rather than resistance, you often discover that they have valuable information for you. That anxiety about your relationship might be pointing you toward important conversations you need to have. That anger about your work situation might be highlighting values that aren't being honored. That sadness about changes in your life might be helping you grieve what you're leaving behind so you can more fully embrace what's ahead. This doesn't mean you have to like every emotion you experience or that you should never want difficult feelings to pass. It just means that you can be open to what they might be offering you instead of immediately trying to shut them down or make them wrong. As we wrap up our exploration of why emotions feel like tsunami warnings, I want to leave you with this thought: your emotional system, in all its intensity and complexity, is not broken. It's not too much, it's not wrong, and it's not something that needs to be fixed. It's an incredibly sophisticated system that has been fine-tuned over millions of years to help humans navigate complex social environments, make important decisions, and respond to both opportunities and threats. The fact that this system sometimes feels overwhelming in our modern world doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means you're a human being with a human nervous system trying to live in a world that's very different from the one this system originally evolved to handle. Understanding how your emotions work can help you develop a more compassionate and skillful relationship with them. The goal isn't to never feel emotional tsunamis again. It's to develop the skills, understanding, and support systems that allow you to navigate them with more grace, wisdom, and self-compassion. It's to learn that you can experience intense emotions without being destroyed by them, that you can honor your feelings without being controlled by them, and that you can use your emotional experiences as information and energy for creating the life you truly want. Remember, every emotional experience you have, even the difficult ones, is contributing to your emotional wisdom and resilience. Each time you practice staying present with challenging feelings, each time you respond to emotions with curiosity instead of resistance, each time you reach out for support when you need it, you're building your capacity to live more fully and authentically. Your emotions aren't your enemy, they're your ally, even when they don't feel like it. They're trying to help you navigate this complex experience of being human. And when you understand how to work with them skillfully, they become one of your most valuable resources for living a meaningful, connected, and fulfilling life. Thank you for taking this journey into the depths of emotional experience with me. If this exploration has shifted something in how you understand your own emotional life, I'd love it if you'd give this video a like to help others discover these insights too. And if you know someone who might benefit from understanding why their emotions sometimes feel so overwhelming, please share this video with them. Sometimes we all need a reminder that our emotional intensity is a sign of our humanity, not a flaw to be fixed. If you made it all the way through this deep dive with us, drop the word lighthouse in the comments, because that's what we're all learning to become for ourselves and each other in the storms of emotional life. And if you're curious to explore more about how our minds work and how to navigate the beautiful complexity of being human, check out the next video that's appearing on your screen right now. If these kinds of insights resonate with you and you'd like to be part of a community that explores the deeper aspects of psychology and human experience, consider subscribing to Not What It Seems. Until next time, remember that your emotions are information, not instructions, and you have everything within you to navigate whatever waves come your way.